Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and I am sat here on the mighty Swobu Swaggins to bring you your Discipline Priest guide for patch 5.4. It's the one I complained about more than anything at the beginning of Mr. Pandaria, didn't I? I gave this thing some shit. I really did. I went absolutely apeshit on this. So boring. I pressed Spirit Shell over and over. But they have modified it and tweaked it and changed it all around and mixed it up and made it into kind of a fun class now, actually. It's not one of the most fun classes, in my opinion, if you're going to do some healing, but it is the most interesting. I would say that if you're very much into your raid mechanics and whatnot, you're going to have a pretty good time with the Disc Priest. You really, really are. But on top of that as well, if you're kind of sick and tired of the whole straight up heal damaged people style of play, then yeah, Disc doesn't work like that. And as much as it is a healer, it straight up just relies on you being a very good player. The better player you are, the more results you're going to get out of your Disc Priest. But we'll talk about that in the gameplay style. I'm going to do your talents overview and all that kind of stuff. These things do kind of have some choice when it comes to 10 and 25 man and different thoughts and schools of playing. Of course, Disc Priest is kind of known for having that whole DPS style of play via Atonement. Many of you will know all about Atonement and the fact that when you do some damage that you do in fact get to heal people and pop absorbs and all that kind of stuff. So absorbs is our name of the game. Let's jump into our talents and stuff and skip over that very, very quickly so we can get onto how you actually play this bad boy. I hope you guys roll a priest. I really genuinely mean that. I want you guys to roll a priest. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Alright, so level 15. Some CC. Void Tendrils is generally the way to go. But whatever, it's CC. If your raid needs it, your raid needs it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Decide what the encounter needs. At level 30, it's kind of got to come down between Angelic Feather and Body and Soul. I love Body and Soul because I'm always the kind of guy to spot the tank from afar. If Mark Corcoran Overseer over here was to be a tank, I'd be popping a shield on that sumbitch. I'd be letting him run faster. I tend to be very aware of what people are doing around me while I'm healing. I don't really focus on grid or anything. I love watching what the encounter is doing and unfolding. As such, you can actually spot people that either need a life grip or just a simple shield to get some body and soul on them. And we're going to be using shields a lot for our Rapture as well. Angelic Feather is there if you want to start spamming it down. I personally prefer body and soul. At level 45, Mindbender's great. It really is. Mindbender is great on any encounter. It's like a 1 minute cooldown. You fire that thing off. You get this really regular mana input that you can rely on. Sudden bursts. You know, anybody who's ever healed before will have these moments where it's like, oh my god, I need to fucking heal all the time. And your mana's a bit tricky. Likelihood is Mindbender's either off cooldown or about to come off cooldown when you have those moments. And it's very, very regular. So it's to be said for Solace and Insanity and From Darkness Comes Light as well. Just letting you know what I prefer. Level 60, everyone's like, Desperate Prayer. Gotta have the Desperate Prayer, otherwise you're a noob. It's not actually that terrible, especially combined with our big cooldown, which is Void Shift, where we swap. If you don't know what Void Shift does, you actually swap health with someone based on a percentage. So, like your tank's nearly dead, you can Void Shift him, you're at full health, you go boom, back up to full health, and then you can follow that bastard up with a Desperate Prayer and get a nice big heal. So you don't die. That's always handy, is not to die, not to kill yourself especially. Shadow Priests will remember the old Shadow word, death, killing themselves. Desperate Prayer is handy for that. I personally prefer Angelic Bulwark. I'm not wary, but I tend not to be in that position where I'm void shifting at a situation that might kill me very often. More often than not, I'm just like healing other people and suddenly I get hit by something, or, you know, there's a situation that's come up that I wasn't prepared for. Maybe I was tunneling grid a little bit. Big problem with healers is you're always kind of focused on your raid frames. And then Angelic Bulwark just saves my ass. I personally prefer it. Level 75. People are going to say, this is where it gets choicy. And again, I decide to choose what I think is better. Twist of Fate is considered to be the best. Okay, so everyone's like, you got to take Twist of Fate, you got to take Twist of Fate. And that's because it actually double dips. If you're not sure what double dips is, Discipline Priests get the benefit of both of the effects of this. So your Twist of Fate is after damaging or healing a target below 35% health, you deal 15% increased damage and healing for 10 seconds. So not only is that buffing your atonement on your straight up healing, but the fact that it's buffing your damage means you're actually going to do more atonement healing as well. My problem is I prefer Power Infusion, straight up. I prefer this on-demand, I need you now, especially when I'm combining it with things like Spirit Shell. I want to get as many things out while under the effects of Spirit Shell as possible. And I found just in general that dropping a Power Infusion along with various other cooldowns allow me to do some pretty spectacular things. Whereas Twist of Fate, I might not always be damaging something. I'm likely to, don't get me wrong, I'm likely to be damaging things even just to keep my evangelism up, which we'll talk about soon. But in general, I just prefer Power Infusion's playstyle. When it comes to healing, I always have this idea of I don't like randomness in any way, shape, or form. I really don't like randomness. Healing is about when you need the healing, it has to be there. Right? When you need to heal that raid, it's gotta be there. There can be no ifs, ands, or buts about how powerful your character is, and Power Infusion solves that for me. Level 90, I'm obviously doing a lot of LFRs for you guys to show you how this thing works, so therefore Cascade is kind of a must. You know, you're trying to get people in LFR to sort of gather in one spot is about as likely as me walking into a room and Mia Kunis just being like, oh, dude, might preach you out. Yeah, I totally want to suck your dick. That's just not likely to happen. It's not likely to happen. Therefore, Cascade is just like a must-have. People are all over the goddamn place. It's like a circus in there. And therefore, Cascade just works really nicely for me. Excuse me, I've still got a terrible cold, guys. Divine Star has its place. If people are gathered up, Divine Star is really cool. It's so goddamn cheap. 13,000 mana, what the fuck is that? It's nothing compared to the 30,000 mana of Cascade. Halo, not really for healing. Some people are really like, yeah, Halo's actually pretty nice. I don't like the fact that I might have to move to cast it. And that is literally my problem with it. I don't want to have to move to get the benefit of a spell. And most of the time, if we're gathered, it's like two styles of healing. Either people are spread for whatever reason, ergo Cascade, or we're all gathered in one spot and we're all stood on top of each other. You might have the melee in the distance. And therefore, Halo's really going to affect the melee. Yeah, I don't like that. I like the Divine Star that I can shoot through people like a big spurt of jism and it comes flying back to me. Like there's something about Mary. You know, beautiful examples like that. So I prefer Cascade, but it's going to be Cascade or Divine Star in my opinion, depending on if you're doing 10 or 25 man content. Your glyphs, you got some choice here as well. Good old priests, man. They're one of the most well-rounded classes of this expansion. I fucking love them. Glyph of Penance, I find it very, very hard to live without Glyph of Penance. I really do. If Penance is such a great spell and the ability to cast it on the move, I do sort of 360 no-scope penances. It just makes you look cool and just have a little bit of fun while you're playing. You gotta have fun while you're playing, and Penance just comes in handy. You don't have that many spells. You've got, you know, besides your Power Word Shield that you can cast on the move. Renew is complete dog shit for Discipline, so you can even remove it from your bars essentially and just not bother with it. So when you are moving around and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, then that Penance on the move is actually very handy to throw out some big heals. Glyph of Sanctum. It's kind of hard to realize why you wouldn't take this, especially as priests healing priests anyway, tend to swap quite regularly between Glyph of Inner Will, I should say, or Inner Fire. We do tend to swap around a lot, whether or not we want the 10% extra spell power or we want the wonderful cooldown, mana reduction on our instant cast spells, of which we do have some expensive ones. Therefore, you either want the 6% passive spell power reduction, right? Spell damage taken reduction, 6%. That adds up pretty quickly in a lot of fights. As a caster, which we innately are, we tend to only get hit by spells. We very rarely have some mob beating on us unless we're in some tricky situation. If there's mobs beating on you, you're probably going to die anyway, especially in some sort of raid environment, so I like that. And the speed improvement that we get from Inner Will, absolutely fantastic. But in general, we are going to be rolling with Inner Fire for extra spell power. The Glyph of Prayer of Mending. Now, this obviously depends on what you are doing. As simple as that. Along with most things in this game, right? It depends on what you are doing. I tend to do a lot of tank healing and then people just randomly get hit with a lot of crap. Prayer of Mending is something we tend to keep on cooldown as a Disc Priest. As such, I'm going to be firing it mostly at the tank and he's going to get that big 60% benefit. Right, we've got a stack of Grace on that guy. So you can see if you cast spells on a target, you get Grace, increasing all healing received from the priest by 30%. Then you're going to slap that sumbitch up with some Prayer of Mending, having that extra 60%, and then you lose a charge. It's kind of ipso facto on whether or not you want that benefit. Again, it's decided by the encounter. The encounter is going to tell you what's going on. So some other choices you might want to throw in there, the Glyph of Binding Heal. Your Binding Heal now heals a third friendly target within 20 yards, but costs 35% more mana. Binding Heal is one of the best spells in this game for a healer. I just don't see people use it anywhere near enough. It's like, well, I've got my basic spells, which is like heal and penance and whatever. And then they forget that they've got this super incredible spell called Binding Heal, which is awesome. It's so awesome that I can't even cast it. It's so fucking good I can't cast it. Can I cast it on you, Shikani? It's to heal yourself and another target. My god, that's good. At the same time, save yourself from dying. And there's also various encounters where you can actually abuse this, such as I want to say it's actually an encounter you guys probably won't do anymore. I think it's Garajal the Spirit Binder while you were down in that shadow world. Binding Heal was ridiculous down there because you were doing all this extra healing and getting all your mana back. There's certain encounters where, when I've played with some very good priests, I'd like to give a shout to Flayu. I don't think he plays anymore from Method. First thing he was doing was, every time I raided with that guy on progress, was looking for ways to abuse Binding Heal. He appreciated how good it is. Trust me, that thing is fucking awesome. Probably talked too long about it. Holy Fire. Increase the range of Holy Fire smite powered solid spells by 10 yards. It does what it does. It does what it says on the tin. Have fun with it. Do whatever you want to do. But needless to say, you got a couple of choices there of whichever ones you want to rock and roll with. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. You got Purify. He heals your target 5% of maximum health. Yeah, if you're going to be doing a lot of dispelling, so you're thinking of the Sheriff Pride. I'm bound to get that wrong. The Sheriff Pride, yeah, then maybe he's going to come in pretty handy for you. Right, gearing. Got a few choices here. Any website or Reforge add-on is going to be like, Spirit. Not always the case. You'll actually see a lot of priests, especially the high-end priests, rolling with very low spirit. If you've got good mana management and your gear is of a reasonable level, you're not going to struggle too much with spirit. So be a little bit careful with that. What you're actually after is a good amount of spirit to the point where you're not going out of mana, okay? How can I say it any better? Are you doing this fight without going out of mana? If you've got too much mana, then you can afford to drop some spirit. What you're going to be pumping it into is mainly intellect, all right? Intellect is a solid stat all round. Then you have to make the decision, do you go mastery or crit? Now, there are going to be some people who are like, crit, 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 and then others who are like, you know what? I prefer my mastery. I am in the mastery camp. I am in the mastery camp because, as I said to you before, when I want those heals to work, I want them to work. So our mastery increase the potency of all your damage absorption cells by 20% and all your healing by 10%. Mastery is there when you need it all the fucking time. No questions asked. Absolutely no risk of mastery failing you. Crit, as always, depending on how much crit you have, is hit and or miss. Sure, it's going to proc and give you some massive absorbs and massive great stuff, but not maybe when you need it. And that is the big problem, isn't it? Especially when we've got things like Inner Focus. Now, I know a lot of the top-end priests are going for crit. They have plenty of gear. There's lots of crit in raids. I personally prefer mastery for the reasons I've said before. It's when I need it, it is there. All the time, no questions asked. And there's a classic healer. It's kind of an old school line of thinking. I want it to be there when I need it. And I don't want that to be a sort of RNG factor. With my healers, I want to remove as much RNG as humanly possible. You guys can make your own mind up. Do you like big fat crits? Go ahead and get some more crit. You'll get some absorbs on top of it. And the more crit you get, the better it is. The more mastery you get, though, it's just flat out always there to save your ass. But don't half-ass it. Go one way or the other. If you're going mastery, go mastery. If you're going crit, go crit. Don't sort of middle of the road it like pussyfoot and dip your toe in the water. Pfft, boring. Don't do that. Playstyle. Let's just talk about the two obvious ones. You're either going to be switching between atonement healing, which is the style of DPS, or you're going to go straight up healing. The thing with a discipline priest that everybody has to remember is that you are specialized in absorption shields. Paladins, kiss your ass, because you are the master, the grandmaster of absorption shields. So you have all these tools that allow you to create bubbles on people, which effectively increase their health and actually put a lot less stress on the other healers. It's a very unique niche role, and you should embrace it fully. If you're going to go as Dis, embrace what you do fully. It also means you're going to have to be very aware, more so than other people, of how the encounter works. When are these big damaging spells coming? So what we're able to do is, first of all, get a nice tell me when set up, or whatever your preferred thing is. One thing you want to do is track Rapture. Okay, this is Rapture. Okay, Rapture, every time your shield, excuse me, removes the cooldown of Power Word Shield and reduces its mana cost by 25%. In addition, when your Power Word Shield is completely absorbed or dispelled, you are instantly refunded 100% of its mana cost. So it's a free bubble, right? That's free healing, baby. This can only occur once every 12 seconds. At very high-end gear levels, guys, you're going to be using Power Word Shield a hell of a lot more because you can afford to sacrifice a little bit more mana. You're going to be more than fine with dropping Power Word Shields because they're super powerful. They're a little bit expensive. But once you get bigger and bigger gear and bigger regen and all that, and your shields are doing so much, okay, then you're going to be fine. So even though straight up just cast it without procs or whatever, I'm getting 80k absorbs. That's no laughing matter for an instant cast spell. You're going to be using a lot more shields. But as you build your gear up, you're not going to be using shield that much. You want to make sure you're using it at least every 12 seconds because that's just a free shield. It's a free 160k heal, especially as it can crit. And then you're going to have Rapture tracked here. So this will tell you when that cooldown is up, that 12 seconds. Because in between that It's not going to happen. So keep an eye on your Rapture setup and tell me when for that. You can easily Google it, guys, and figure out how to do it. Track everything else. So you got your Mind Bender. I'll fire these things off. Inner Focus guarantees us a crit. Mana cost of your next flash heal, greater heal or prayer of healing reduced by 25%, and critical heal increased by 100%. Of course, when we're critting, we're creating absorption shield. So this is a free, huge absorption shield. So drop it on the tank with a prayer of healing. Boom, 105k absorb as well as a 90k heal. Or go ahead and use a prayer of healing on that. Got to be slightly weaker than your greater heal, but of course it's going to be affecting the whole group and giving them big absorbs at the same time. Our next cooldown is going to be Spirit Shell. Okay, Spirit Shell works on a number of spells. A lot of people just go Spirit Shell, Prayer of Healing. For the next 10 seconds, your heal, flash heal, greater heal, and Prayer of Healing no longer heal, but instead create absorption shields that last 15 seconds. This means something, guys. 10 seconds till Iron Juggernaut, Shock Blast, right? Everyone's going to get hit in the face. You can do things like Spirit Shell, Power Infusion. You can Spirit Shell the entire raid with big, fat, dirty absorbs. You can also stack them up, okay? You see every time I recast it, it's stacking up. So if you've got one group taking a ton of damage, you could spam Spirit Shell onto them while the buff lasts. Or you can then go ahead and just basically bubble the whole raid. And you can do that with every fucking minute, guys. You can do that. Every minute you can Spirit Shell everybody, be it the tank or Prayer of Healing on the whole raid. You are going to take a lot of pressure off your other healers who can only cope with damage taken, alright? You're going to do a lot of fucking work there. Void Shift we already spoke about. Mind Bender, your Cascade, of course. You all know what these are. In general, our playstyle is going to revolve as in general healing, especially when we're AoE healing, is keeping Prayer of Mending on cooldown. And then also making sure we take advantage of our things like our Inner Focus and our Spirit Shell, depending on what we're doing at the time. The other style of healing is, of course, Atonement. This comes from DPS. Now, you'll notice I have an add-on here tracking Evangelism, okay? Evangelism. It increases the damage of your Penance, Smite, or Holy Fire spells by 16%, and it stacks up to 5, so you get the 20%, and the mana cost by 30%. Alright? Couple of ways of treating this, because this is going to proc Archangel, okay? If I pop Archangel with my 5 stacks of Evangelism, you can see my 5 stacks have gone. And now I have this Archangel buff. Healing increased by 25% for 15 seconds, right? So a couple of ways to think about this. One is you're going straight up DPS. You're just absolutely nuking the shit out of people. You're going to be using it on cooldown. You're going to have a good old time doing that, all right? You're just going to be DPSing, using your Archangel on cooldown so you can get more Atonement healing out. Every single second you're in combat, guys, as a Discipline Police, there is something you can do. There is something you... Just don't forget your other spells while you're doing it. So you can go balls to the wall DPS. Absolutely having a great old time, no problem. And using your Archangel on cooldown. That's going to passively do your healing. Right? Simple as that. The other style of play is what I tend to do, really. I like Atonement sometimes, but often I find it, like, kind of boring. I like to plan out what I'm doing. Is I actually have a macro here, Holy Fire macro. It's kind of big. I'll stick it in the description. What this does is it allows me to Holy Fire on cooldown without actually targeting anybody, okay? So if I target myself and press Holy Fire, you can see it's gone ahead and Holy Fired a random target. The reason I do this is the Holy Fire cooldown is actually much less than the Evangelism buff wearing off. And what I'm doing is I've built Holy Fire onto a cooldown there. It's passively building my Evangelism. What I'm actually doing by using this macro is I'm stacking my Evangelism up to 5. And then I have Archangel on cooldown, right? So I've got Archangel going to be flashed up. I'm going to stack up the Archangel very quickly. You can do this just by using your Holy Fire on cooldown. I have Archangel ready and raring to go whenever I need it. And just casting that Holy Fire on cooldown is going to do some Atonement healing, but also refresh this stack of Evangelism. So when that holy shit moment comes, let's say I'm in that situation where I'm like, oh my god, the raid is about to die. I need to Spirit Shell, Power Infusion, everybody. I can actually stack an Archangel on top of that. Yeah? And then go absolutely fucking crazy. I can go crazy because I've got 25% increased healing. I've got massive Spirit Shell and Power Infusion. That raid ain't dying. And basically what you're doing is keeping Archangel in reserve. You're passively stacking up that 5 stack so it's ready and raring to go. And abusing the fact that you have this 25% extra healing cooldown just waiting there. And all you had to do was press Holy Fire every 20 seconds, right? That's all you had to do. And it was there and waiting for you. So that's something you should bear in mind when you're playing. Let's jump into a gameplay video now and you can see it all in action. Take it easy, guys. Bye.